Hi, Rebecca. I hear that you and others are working a lot with NHS trusts. What's that all about?
Oh, yes. So we have been working with two trusts in the Northwest for the last year, 18 months or so, and we're supporting them bring to life their Civility Saves Lives culture change. Essentially, it's part of a bigger piece of work in both of those trusts, but we're bringing to life Civility Saves Lives in terms of getting all of their staff, regardless of the role they do, involved in the conversation around Civility Saves Lives.
So, Civility Saves Lives sounds really interesting. Can you tell me a bit more about it?
So, Civility Saves Lives is a nationwide program, culture change piece of work that is been rolled out across lots of different trusts in a number of different ways. And it's based on the experiences of some consultants who kind of started the movement, the thinking, and their realization that actually some really serious incidents that they investigated, the root cause of those were actually the way that clinicians and nurses in those instances spoke to each other, and the way that kind of incivility had a potentially fatal situation. It didn't in the end, but that was the driving force. And then there's a growing body of research, actually globally, about the way that rudeness and incivility can impact people's cognitive ability. So that's a study by Poroth and Erez, who found that cognitive ability can be reduced by 61%. And also that one in four people admitted, it's part of that research, that if someone's rude to them, then they will then go on to be rude to someone else. So it has that kind of ripple effect as well. And then in a medical setting, there's some research by Katz that talks about the impact on performance in nearly every metric if someone is on the receiving end or experiences rudeness, experiences incivility in a medical setting. So that obviously can be quite critical if somebody is in theatre, if someone's administering medication, if someone's dealing with a really stressful situation, and then to have on top of that dealing with what happens to you if someone's rude, and that's that sort of flooding, that inability to think straight, that inability to perform at your best. It's a bit like, outside of work, if someone cuts you up on the motorway and we see red and we're flooded with emotions, and we maybe don't always think straight, and we maybe then aren't the best driver. We might not put our foot down, we might be seething about it for an hour, we might be transported to somewhere else. The bottom line is we're probably not our best selves, and we're probably not the safest driver in that moment because someone has done something that's pushed our buttons. And it's that sort of thinking, but in for Civility Saves Lives, in a medical setting, it's that button pushing and then the chain reaction that happens beyond that. So that's Civility Saves Lives.
So what work on Civility Saves Lives are we doing with NHS Trust?
So the Civility Saves Lives website has got some brilliant resources, and it gives a really good context and the research to the why this is important. What we're doing with these trusts is bringing to life the conversation. We're allowing staff in all roles to get involved in workshops that set out what is Civility Saves Lives, why is it important, and then more importantly, how do they contribute? So how does the way that they interact with their colleagues contribute in a positive or negative way? How can people be in control of their emotions? How do people interact with each other in a way that is as positive as possible? And that's in what can be sometimes a really stressful, really complicated setting. So we're behaviouralists, right? So we're talking about how people behave, why they do what they do, and how civility is so important in the medical setting.
What impact are we seeing from this work?
Well, the first impact we see is in the sessions, the conversations that people are having, the aha moments that people are having, the wow, I never realised that if I behave like that, then the knock-on effect is this, and someone carries it around with me all day. So that's the first impact, and it's very immediate. We then have got hundreds, probably thousands now, pieces of feedback from people who've been to a session, giving some really positive feedback about that. That's really opened my eyes to how important it is to be civil and to be polite and to be considerate and to be in control of my emotions and what have you in at work. Well, I mean, in life, but we're talking about it in the workplace. So that's the sort of immediate feedback that we get. And then over a longer period, we are tracking the kind of impact in how people feel about their workplace and how people feel about the trust, and having some really longer term positive impacts as well. So it's really rewarding to see it in the moment, in the sessions, or directly afterwards, and then longer term, helping the trusts really shift, that kind of how it feels, the culture in those workplaces, because people are starting to say, actually, what can I do, and what's in my sphere of control, and actually what are other people doing, and really getting a common language in place, so that the leadership teams in the trust can start to build on that and say, well, actually, we talked about civility and we talked about our role and we talked about how important it is, and it allows them to start to address issues going forward as well.
Amazing, thank you.